Damn, it's raining outside.
Yeah, I could hear it. I could hear it over the...
Face the death. Look him in the eye. You can't turn back once you come this far into the darkness.
So, Derek, I just dive right into this stuff, you know. Most people know you for your drummer prowess. One of the first extreme or
lack of.
But one of the first extreme metal drummers to really get attention, not only in the metal world, but in the drumming world. And you kind of became, for lack of a better word, Kenny Aronoff of extreme drumming, right? People needed someone who could play a certain something, and you know, you were one of those few guys that they could call. So I want to take you back to the Deboning Method, and I'm not sure if this was the first, I guess you call like real band that you were in, but why don't you take me back to kind of the late 80s, early 90s and what you were doing at the time?
I had discovered Slayer, and within a few weeks of hearing Slayer and getting familiar with songs off the show No Mercy, I was playing along and Hell Awaits, and then when Angel of Death came out on Rain and Blood, that kind of set me down the path of where I really am, you know. And I think that's true for a lot of drummers my age, especially, you know, hearing that song. I wasn't really interested in playing along. Like, it was hard back then to play along to something. I mean, yeah, there were headphones and whatnot, but they weren't isolated like they are now so much, unless they were really expensive. And, you know, I could play along to records, and, you know, they would skip because you're playing drums with, you know, and it was just all types of things. And even going back before the Deboning Method, my brother is 9 years older than me. He plays guitar and sings. And my cousin at the time was playing bass. He's 6 years older than me.
Okay.
And we had decided when I was young, 4, 5, 6 years old, right when I started playing drums, that we were going to have a band. So we were already playing out, like at church or my mom's garden club kind of things, you know, community centers in the neighborhood. We were already out playing Allman Brothers, the Doobie Brothers, Leonard Skinner, Boston, Kansas, a few Kiss songs.
Wow.
You know, and we were already playing.
How old were you at this time?
From the time I was 6, 7, 8 in there. When I was 8, I won a national talent show playing Wipeout on the drums.
Oh, wow. Was it like a televised thing or just
well, I didn't win the nationals. I went to finals.
Okay.
But I won my regional thing or whatever. During that point in time, because my brother's 9 years older, by the time, you know, he was interested in girls and I was still like a kid, you know.
Right.
And he was never around, obviously, because chasing tail. And I just started playing with guys in my neighborhood. And we all kind of gravitated towards the same stuff. We like really heavy music, you know, Slayer, Forbidden at the time, Dark Angel was like killer for us. We were really into that stuff. So that's how it started. We just started writing our own songs and playing. And then, you know, we started being able to, we got good. You know, all of us had a pretty decent natural ability at the time, I guess, for our age. And the local club owner, he would always book us for, you know, opening for all the nationals that came around. So we opened for Creator and Corner and Dark Angel, Napalm Death. You know, there was a few different bands that came through town, and I was in Columbia, South Carolina.
I was going to say,
so there wasn't a whole lot, you know.
Right.
Wasn't a whole lot of stuff coming through, but that's where it all started for me with the Deboning Method. Yeah.
Okay. And so with the Deboning Method, you had the 1990 demo and the 93. I don't know if it's a full length or an EP. The Cold record.
Right.
And then from
and
there,
then there's the Demonacy was actually 93. Cold was 90.
Demonacy.
And then, you know, we had recorded something in 89, and it was like 90 by the time we got it out on cassette tape. It was like a 4-song demo as well. It was so expensive to record, man. That was the thing that always held us back, and that's where I got into production as well, because I had a friend of mine, Bob Moore, who owns SoundLab Studios now and has recorded Nile and a few other, you know, bands have come through there.
Okay.
And used him, but we all kind of grew up together, so that's where it started production-wise for me as well, because the Deboning Method, it just so expensive. So he bought, you know, a TAC Scorpion console, and he had like an 8-track Tascam reel-to-reel, and he eventually upgraded to ADATs when those things first came out in the early 90s. And we just started recording, and that's where Cold came from. And then later we did Demonic Sea, and never put them out. I mean, just we had 250 copies of Cold, I think, on cassette, and the other one, I think the band kind of just spiraled away from each other. Like, people started going to school.
Okay.
I moved away, so it kind of just disbanded, and everybody started their own lives, When did we do those? 2013? I finally broke down and joined Facebook. And I reconnected with all those cats. And I was talking to them, once every year or so. I'd go home and see my folks and see some friends and stuff and run into those guys. But we decided after the last ingredient, Rob, nobody had heard from him. And I finally got in touch with him, and we had just decided, man, you guys come down to Florida and let's record all of that stuff that we couldn't afford to do when we were kids,
Yeah.
And let's just see what happens,
Cool.
And sure enough, man, they booked a trip down, all of them, they were able to come down, and within 2 hours of us playing together, man, I mean, it was like 1989, like all over again, or 88, somewhere in there,
But then there's something on your biography profile, kind of on your website and some other sites, that talking about the Bedlam Hour. So is that before or after Deboning Method era?
It was during.
Okay.
So Bedlam Hour was a kind of like they weren't international at the time, but like a national punk rock band.
Okay.
And it was anything from like pop punk, like happy kind of Green Day, but before Green Day kind of thing. And some of it was it had like some almost techno elements to it.
Interesting.
And some of it was kind of thrashy, where you had like Slayer beats with double bass in it. And it was, for punk rock, it was kind of like all-encompassing.
Okay.
Right? Hardcore kind of breakdown-y kind of things here and there, and I toured with them. I did a couple of United States tours. I did a European tour with them in, what year? 91, maybe 92? I don't remember. Somewhere in there.
Okay.
And and that band, again, here's another band where people were in school and they just graduated and got married and became school teachers and that kind of thing. So that's how that broke out.
So where?
And just going back to the Deboning Method real quick.
Yeah.
We did actually. I told you, we videotaped that stuff, but we did record it, and I do have copies of it available on the Serpents Rise site.
Nice.
So I need to go up there and update them actually, which I've got it on my schedule to do this weekend, to update that site. But there's going to be videos of the Deboning Method and buyable content, so you can actually we re-recorded Cold with the original singer, because the guitar player was singing when we recorded it in 90 or 91, and then so the original singer's on that, and then we recorded like the songs that we had in high school, like 86, 87, 88, that we never got to record, so we actually did that as well. So there's 2 different releases on there.
Oh, cool. Nice. Well, everyone,
I'll send them to you later.
Yeah, get over to the site.
Send me an email. I'll send them to you.
That'll be awesome. Cool. Definitely want to check that out. So then in the interim between, I guess, 93-ish, and then when you started playing with Malevolent, like how did you get there? Like, what was in between that? Okay,
so after the Deboning Method, kind of everybody moved around and went to school and graduated and stuff, I moved to Atlanta. This was the second time, actually, I moved to Atlanta. And I had met a guy, a friend of mine was living there, and met this dude in a music store, and said, oh, you need to call this guy, my friend Derek. So he called me up, and this guy, was completely schizophrenic. And, I mean, one of the most interesting people still to this day I've ever met. But this guy, as a musician, at least at that point in time, before his mind degraded so much, he was probably one of the most proficient and well-rounded musicians that I had ever seen.
Wow.
I mean, the guy he wrote these incredible, very unique but real techie kind of tech death riffs mixed with Morbid Angel, like Altars of Madness kind of sound and stuff.
Okay.
and just the proficiency of his playing and his mind, the way he thought about music and how he arranged was amazing, and I just couldn't believe it. And then could turn right around and go play piano and bring grown women to tears. I mean, it was nuts. You could pick up anything, any instrument. You walk by an oboe in a damn music store, pick it up and play the piss out of the thing. It's nuts.
Crazy.
I've never seen anything like it.
It's a rare breed.
Yeah, so I played with this guy for a while, and we were actually recorded something. It's called Gothic Outcast.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think it's available anywhere, but that's another thing. If you wanted me to send you a link, I could send you that. You can check it out. It's pretty intense. It's got some really crazy stuff on it.
Okay.
And that's pretty neat. And then, like, you know, he just eventually, I was just like, man, this guy is. Some days he was fine, other days he was just through the roof manic, and you know, it's just only so much you can take of that. You know?
Sure.
So I ended up moving back home. I started, Carl and I, from Nile, we've known each other, you know, even going back further. And Carl was like, hey man, you know, I was thinking about maybe starting something else, like another project. I wanted to kind of play some faster stuff, whatnot, and thought of you, and thought, you know, I know Deboning Method stopped playing. I was like, yeah man, cool. So he came down from Greenville one day and brought this guy named Jason Hagen. Jason was the guitar player that I moved here to Florida to join Malevolent with.
Okay.
He came down at the same time and joined Malevolent, right? But we were playing together back home because Carl all of a sudden got busy with Nile. They went on tour with Morbid Angel, and then like that whole thing blew up, and Carl was like, man, you know, I don't really have time, but you guys do your thing, you know?
Yeah.
So Jason and I started playing together. We got another guitar player friend of mine together, and this killer bass player that Jason knew from Greenville as well, this guy named Brent. And we played under the moniker of Creature.
Okay.
For about 2 years in Charleston, South Carolina, a year and a half or so. And man, dude, we took over that scene so quick. It wasn't so, we did have some blast beat stuff, but it was real like heavy, almost like, you know, like Obituary heavy. Okay. But more musicianship oriented, you know.
Got you.
Real groovy stuff. Like you did have some fast double bass stuff, but it was backbeats, you know.
Right.
And again, same thing. One of the guitar players got a management gig and somewhere and moved, and then the bass player, same thing, like got some type of position or school or something. And then Jason and I were sitting around one day, and another friend of mine had told me, like, hey man, Dave Crowell, I just heard quit Malevolent, and they're looking for a drummer. And I was like, really? So I called Pavement.
You did?
And talked
you just found the number?
What was the name? Yeah, it was on the Pavement number was on the back of one of the CDs, you know, the office or whatever. And I talked to, what was that girl's name that used to work at Pay? Was her name Debbie? What was her name? Tammy was her name. Tammy Crutchfield. So she answered the phone there, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with Phil from Malevolent. You know, I heard he needs a drummer. I'm willing to go down there and like meet with him or whatever. So she gave me his number.
That's awesome.
I called him, and he was like, hey kid, do you party? Let's see, one of the first things he asked me.
Hey, I know I toured with Phil, so I know Phil very well, and yeah, that's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, so
very Phil.
Yeah, that's how that all came about. And I went down, and what was funny about that is I think I called him on like a Thursday, and I said, look, I can drive down next Wednesday. And I spoke with him once. And then I drove down, and like, dude wasn't even home. He gave me his address and whatever. He's like, I called. This is before cell phones, or before a lot of people had cell phones.
Sure.
At least I went to a payphone, called him because he did have a cell phone, if I remember correctly. And he was like, "Nah, kid, I'm on the golf course." I was like, "All right, cool." So I ended up waiting around. I think Crazy Larry. He told me where the studio was at. He said, go by there. I think Crazy Larry's probably there playing drums. And sure enough, Crazy Larry was there. I introduced myself to him.
Okay.
And I set my kit up and waited for Phil. Phil finally showed up around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Jammed with him. And he was like, oh my God, this is great. You know, just like, you're going to work out fine. Welcome to the band. And then like we played for like 45 minutes, and then he took off to a dart championship that he was in. So darts.
Right. Yep.
I was like, okay, cool, I could be into that. I like throwing darts. That's cool, whatever. But then Blackowitz showed up because Blackowitz worked until late. So Jason and I were there together playing Malevolent songs.
Okay.
Jason comes in, hears us, like, where's Phil? Darts. So he jams with us. He kissed me right on the mouth, Jason Blackowitz, that night. I was,
That's awesome.
really, dude? He was like, I love you. Apparently they had been looking for drummers for a couple of months or something.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like that's a typical
know.
Malevolent
Anyway.
thing. They're always looking for a new drummer, yeah.
well, yeah, new lineup, new something. Buddy.
Well, that's awesome. I think that was my introduction to you, and probably a lot of other people, was In Cold Blood, and I really loved that record at the time.
Really?
I did, yeah. I
mean,
I was
it's got its
probably
moments.
16 at the time. And, it was right in my wheelhouse. I just thought it was so heavy. I liked that there was a little bit more groove aspect there. And I always did like the Jason era of the band as much as I liked the Brett era of the band. So,
Yeah. I remember Jason doing vocals because if you notice on Eternal, there's no highs.
yeah.
There's no high screams,
Right.
So when we were rehearsing for it, recording, I kept telling him, man, do it, just bust them out or whatever. He's like, no, dude, I can't do them. I was like, you can do them. And just one day, he just, and he was like, dude, I can do it. Pretty funny.
That's awesome.
That was a fun experience.
So
And
that
you guys have had, or I know Craig has had Scott Burns on or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
we've had him
that was
on,
a fun
yeah.
experience recording with him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was probably one of the later ones he ever did, I would imagine.
I think it was the last.
Was it the last?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
So
So what was that like for you now, being in a kind of this renowned studio, especially with metal recordings and working with Mr. Burns himself? Like, what was that experience like for you?
super easy.
Yeah.
Like way easy. So, like I said, going back to Bob Moore at Sound Lab back home, like we built 2 or 3 different studios together, and I've been recording myself as long as I remember. So like the red light doesn't scare me at all, and I was actually looking forward to it. And Scott kind of tricked us. We got there, we set up. I thinking it was a Friday, maybe a Thursday, I don't remember. We get there about 3 o'clock and set up. So Steve Harrison was the engineer for Mass Suck.
Okay.
And I remember he got the kit mic'd and started pulling tones together. And then Scott came in, and he like at that time he was working a day job, like a data something.
Okay.
I don't remember. And so he came in, and we started messing around. He put the tape on reels. He said, look, man, like, you guys, if you want to just warm up and let's just get some tones together, you guys play a little bit so we can get a vibe. You guys can get a vibe, and then we can come in fresh and start in the morning.
Cool.
Okay, perfect. So Phil is in the room with me, but his room is, amps in another isolated room.
Sure.
So there's no bleed or whatever. We're jamming, and we run through the songs basically like we would just rehearse them. I don't know why we ended up playing like all of the songs.
Okay.
And Scott was like, hey guys, can you come in here? And we were like, yeah. And he sat us down and he says, I think we captured the drums. You guys want to listen back to this?
Wow.
So we literally listened back to it and was like, holy shit, yeah, everything sounds good. We just need to do a couple of things.
Wow.
And I guess by then, word had leaked out around Tampa. So we went back in to retrack like a couple of things, or the couple songs that we didn't do. Scott had to change tape out.
Okay.
Because those tapes are only like 20 minutes or so, So we had to change the tape out. And we started up again. So I was like, Phil, what songs didn't we play? I think we did In Cold Blood, Seizure, and Millions, I think, which were some of the faster ones, or maybe Preyed Upon, I don't remember.
Okay.
Actually, it was Preyed Upon, because I have a specific memory. There's a part in that song where it's like and it's like this bomb blast, but the cymbals are like and it's switching hands,
Okay.
like this, you know,
Yep.
and I'm fucking going for it, man, like, you know, recording because the headphones sounded so good, and I was playing an AOT kit at the time that sounded
nice.
amazing.
Yeah, those sound nice.
And yeah, so everything
it
was like,
maple?
and it was just sounded so good. And I remember looking up during that part, and the window I was set up sideways, parallel to the window.
Okay.
And both Scott and Steve were leaning over the console, like. I never will forget that as long as I live. And Gus Rios, another drummer friend of mine, he
we
was
know
there
Gus.
when we recorded that. I took him with me
Okay.
because he wanted to go. He's like, man, I've never been in Morrison. I'd like to go over there or whatever. So
Nice.
he's got like a better memory about it because he was actually in the control room, like listening to these guys when we were recording or whatever. But yeah, we did it like the first night there.
Wow.
It was done.
That's
I
amazing.
think probably 3 hours maybe. Track that record.
Wow.
Something like that.
Crazy. All right.
Yeah, and most of those songs are first takes. The very last song, what is it? Seizure?
Yeah, I could tell you. I got it with me. Yep.
No,
Seizure.
sorry. The first song.
Nocturnal
Nocturnal
Overlord.
Overlord.
Yeah.
There's a section in there that has a gravity blast.
Oh. That would have been one of the first
And-
recorded.
Yeah, maybe.
I would imagine.
But it happened by accident. Yeah, and if you listen really close, right when it comes in, it's right before it's like that long, after the slow part and it speeds up,
Okay.
and then there's that long scream, and then the double bass is under it, and the snare is there too. But if you listen, you can hear a drumstick fall in between everything, clink, 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 clink.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
And what had happened is I had come out of that roll, dropped the stick, and just naturally did this until I grabbed another stick, and then it goes into a single hand. So
Whoa.
it's like half of it, and then a stick,
Crazy.
and then it's the roll, and then into the bomb blast again. And it happened like a split second, you know, like a car accident.
Right, right.
Like everything slows down, and you're like, whoa.
Matrix. Yeah.
And Scott loved that so much. He was like, dude, the vibe of that, bro. He's like, y'all got to keep that. That is so killer. So we ended up keeping it.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I'll
And
definitely
that's
go
something
back
that
and
we were
listen to
talking
that.
about earlier that would have been fixed, Craig.
Yeah,
That would have
Yep.
been fixed.
that's true. That would have been edited today. That's true.
Yep.
Well, I was a big fan of that record. For me, it was brutal. It was heavy, and my 15-year-old brain or whatever I was at the time, it was perfect. And even just your playing, like I loved Cool Ross's playing, because he played so hard. It was just his blasts were so
He's a monster.
it's so aggressive, you know. They were just so aggressive. But like you added some great, like even I don't even know what song it is. Maybe the title track. The where you come in with the flams on the toms and stuff. The you know, it just sounds so big and heavy and it sounds awesome. So I thought it was a killer record. And then I guess you went on the road with them for a while afterwards, supporting.
No, we did. Before we recorded that, we did a few shows in Texas, and never got to do anything live with them. I mean, there's just I don't have to tell you anything about Malevolent, but it was just so much chaos going on.
Sure.
You know, it just from a social point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I had ended up moving back home for a while after I recorded that record. And that was kind of the plan anyway. After I figured out, when I got down there and I figured out what type of environment I was in,
Mm-hmm.
it was not what I was looking for. I was looking for less of a party environment and more of a serious, I want to be a badass musician environment.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know how I fell into Divine Empire, because that basically is in cold blood without Phil.
Right.
Right? So JP had come up.
Is
Myrtle Beach,
JP on? Is JP on?
He's on in Cold Blood.
Okay,
yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Jason Hagen wrote a few of the songs.
Okay.
That ended up on there, but he opted out. He didn't like the party atmosphere so much either, and I was
Gotcha.
like, I'm just going to stick it out, and so he took off. We got JP in the band, and JP's a great player, and he just basically was helping us out during that point, and he wasn't really into any of that, the party environment so much either. So, So yeah, I had left and moved back home. JP had met some girl somewhere and decided he wanted to bring her on vacation to Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
So he come up and stayed with me a couple of days, over a couple weekends maybe, and we started playing, and I had a little recording set up, and we started recording some songs. And I guess when he came back to Florida, he played them for Jay, and Jay was like, "Oh, dude, yeah, we got to call it Divine Empire, and dude, we're gonna go on. I'll get us a record deal, blah blah blah."
Wow.
You know, and it just JP was like, "Hey, man, Jay got us signed, and you want to come down here and write some more songs, put out a record?" I was like, yeah, fuck it, why not? You know?
Well, then
so that's how that started.
Well, then you did go out on the road, because I saw you guys open for Emperor on that giant tour you guys did.
Yeah, we did a couple of really good ones, actually.
That was an amazing
went
tour.
Went out with Vader and Cryptopsy and Gore Guts, too.
Oh, wow.
That was cool. Yeah, then that was Emperor and Witchery, I think, and Bart Nagar, maybe.
Yep.
I don't remember.
Yep, that's right. And that Peccatum thing he had with his wife or whatever. Peccatum.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which was much better live, I thought, than on record. The record was kind of weird, but live it was a little cooler.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, right?
When I remember hearing you, it was the first time me seeing you live. And again, I'm a drummer, and or at least aspiring one at the time. And I was just blown away by how fast you were. And, it was just so precise, and everything was so, and you had this fan on you, and then your hair was just, I mean, this fan was like like blow
we use those
you
industrial
away.
fans.
Yeah.
Hot.
It was super insane fan. I remember that, and you were just, making sure the hair was out of your face, dodging the hair so it would go to the side or behind you, and you were just flying.
Yeah, fun days.
Yeah, super brutal though. And I picked up the record that day. This is, I think I probably have it signed by you guys somewhere in here. I would imagine.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. So yeah, it's from
Where'd
that show. That's when I'm in Ohio. We're in Cleveland, so it was at this weird little club, kind of in podunk nowhere, the Flying Machine in Lorain.
The Flying Machine.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it was out like almost like kind of in a residential area.
Sort of. Yeah, it's like in the woods, kind of. It was like kind of weird.
In the woods, yeah, and it's like a house.
Yeah.
Sort of.
It looks like
it had
little
like
dive bar.
Had like a kitchen, like a commercial kitchen in it. Was weird. Like that was
they
like
had food.
The backstage. It was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, and because Emperor was playing, we had people driving up from Texas for that tour, to see it. So there, like the parking was like crazy, way into the woods. We parked by some tree. I
remember.
I mean, it was packed. It was jammed in there. I don't even know what capacity was, but
it was
definitely
during the winter, if I remember. But it was hot in there. I remember like there was almost raining from the ceiling. It was like so many bodies in there.
Yeah, it was cold. I don't think it was snowing, but it was definitely. I think it was definitely in the colder months because we had to wait outside to get in. Yeah, but yeah, it was one of the best shows I think I've ever seen in my life. Like total, and
That's
you know
nice.
what I mean. And I think wasn't Nick Barker playing for Borknagar on that tour too? Because I remember asking him like, "What are you doing here?"
He was traveling with us.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a fun time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You had a cool little group there. Okay, so then obviously the Divine Empire did. Well, you weren't on the second record. Or did you do both with them?
No.
Okay.
Wasn't on the second one.
Okay.
Just did the first one. Alex did the second one.
Oh, okay.
It just got. Jay was a partier guy, and then he wasn't, and then he was, and he wasn't. And what was happening was when we'd go on tour, he'd start partying and he'd get out of hand.
Yeah.
And again, I was gonna opt out of it, and then my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she was like, "Look, don't quit. You signed a contract. Like, just make them kick you out."
Oh, yeah.
So I just basically, just became uninterested, and and then finally it got to the point where, Jay was like, "Man, I don't think it's working. Whatever. I think we want to get Alex in." I was like, "Okay, good, thanks."
Yeah.
And right around that time, I had met Eric, and we started talking, and I was like, now here's somebody that's playing music for the same reason I am.
Yeah.
To be kick-ass and to be the baddest and the, whatever it was that we were trying to do.
Right.
I identified with Eric on that level, So
yeah, he seems pretty intense.
That's why that happened. Yeah.
Well,
dude, the three of us, man, between Jared and Eric and me, man, I don't think there'll ever be another band like that. I really don't.
Insane, especially as a three-piece. But before we even get into the Hate Eternal, I don't want to skip Aurora Borealis because I wasn't even aware that you had worked with them. They're kind of a band that goes under the radar. Like not, like I see the album covers, I see the logos. I'm like definitely seen that a million times, but for whatever reason, it went under my radar and never had checked it out back in the day. So,
well, it's just Ron.
Okay.
You know, and he never really had like a record deal per se.
Okay.
I mean, you know, maybe in Europe, you know, somebody put it out, some little small record, but he always was like a do-it-yourself, you know, DIY kind of guy. So that's probably why, you know, you went under the radar. It's kind of like Serpents, you know, we're a DIY kind of band. We fly under the radar, and we like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's at least we know the people listening to us are listening to us because they actually genuinely sought it out. You know,
Right.
He's kind of the same way, you know. So we played. Okay, so going back to the schizophrenic guy in Atlanta.
Yeah.
In the early '90s, that's where I met Ron.
Oh, wow.
He was playing with me with Joe in that band, Gothic Outcast.
Okay.
And he was going to Atlanta Institute of Music at the time.
Ah, interesting.
And we reconnected after In Cold Blood.
Okay.
When I moved home, and he had asked me if I wanted to play on his record. Like Tony Laureano had done the first one.
Oh, okay. Another monster, yeah.
And so, oh yeah, Tony's crazy.
Monster.
And then from there I just developed a really good friendship with Ron. We've been friends ever since, you know. And
Okay, so that time that
Yeah.
you recorded a couple records with Aurora, but you started before even Divine Empire, is that correct? Because it seemed like around the same time.
Even before Malevolent. I mean, like as far as playing with Ron, you know, and knowing Ron, yeah. But that was right after I recorded In Cold Blood. I had just moved home, and he had gotten in touch with me, and then him and Jason, the bass player that he was playing with at the time, they drove down from Maryland to Myrtle Beach, and we rehearsed all of that stuff for Praise the Archaic Lights Embrace, which was the second record, first one I played on.
Right.
And we rehearsed all of that stuff, and then we went to Bob's at Sound Lab in Columbia, South Carolina, and recorded it.
Nice. Cool. All right, so that brings us
And
back.
then the second Aurora Borealis I did after Divine, before I got myself in Hate Eternal. And Ron had a studio at home at his place in Maryland, so I drove up to Maryland. We rehearsed for a week, and then we recorded that one there.
Is that the Northern Lights album?
Yes.
Okay, because it looked like there was
On a
some kind of
Mackie console
three-song.
and ADATs.
Oh wow, crazy. They said there's some three-song promo somewhere in there that you were on too, but maybe it was just demos of the Northern Lights material or something.
Yeah, that was probably all of the same stuff. And there was a VHS that was leaked of me and Ron playing during that time period, and we were playing the songs off of Praise and writing the songs on Northern. You know?
Cool.
So there's a video of that stuff out there that's pretty funny.
Nice.
And then I also did Council of the Fallen.
Yeah, I have that marked
right around
too.
the same time.
So did you start
with
that with
No, that was Kevin.
Kevin Queer?
So Kevin Queer, who's now in Deicide.
Right.
So this is a funny story, like kind of an inside story. I again come home from Malevolent Creation recording. I had moved to Myrtle Beach, and I put an ad in the local music store that I was teaching drum lessons at, and Kevin called me. I was also working at House of Blues as a front of house engineer at the time, that had just opened up there in Myrtle Beach. And he came and met me at House of Blues, and he was like, "Yeah, I got some songs." And then I met with him, and like his stuff was just off the chart, like fast and like black metal-y and all standard tune, you know, all up in E and stuff, you know, and real buzzy. And I was like, "Oh man, this is great." So we started playing together in real time, right? And that whole first record we wrote with just me and him. During that time period, I moved back down to join Divine Empire, right? And to do that thing. So he was coming from South Carolina to Florida.
Okay.
And we recorded that first one right here, both of them actually. There was a second one that I played on that that ended up becoming Order of a Need, that Steve actually recut all the drums for.
Okay.
But both of those we did in this room.
Wow.
Which was kind of funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I've been in this room 23 years now.
Oh wow. That's wild.
Yeah. Yep. So that's where that came from. So the Council of the Fallen was done there and done here, and that was all during the same time period that Aurora Borealis happened. It was kind of like a mirror image thing.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how it's all lining up, because I have like a outline, like a timeline here. You know, it's kind of aiding me through. You know, I was doing my research, and it's funny to see how much is intertwining, you know, between worlds here. So was Council of the Fallen always something that you wanted to continue doing, and then did the Nile thing kind of come in and take precedent when they needed you for that?
No,
or?
it was I mean, Council was just like a Kevin he had a real job and he made real money, and he only worked seasonal. So during the summer, like, he would go to Egypt or China or Japan, or he made good money as young as he was. He was like a regional supervisor for one of these beachwear places, like in Myrtle Beach, like Wings or Eagles, if you've ever seen those type of places at the beach or whatever. So he was like, a regional manager. So he made good money, and I guess after he had made enough money and stocked away enough, he decided that he was going to try to come to Florida and find a band, like make a band and try to do the whole thing. So
nice.
I hooked him up with Steve.
Okay.
'Cause I was running sound for Deicide at the time, and I was like, yeah, you should play with Steve. Like, move to the Tampa area. And I was, involved with Divine and just starting to get involved with Eric too.
Okay.
So that, it was kind of off my radar at that point. I kind of wanted to focus on the Hate Eternal thing.
Right. And so obviously Eric.
So yeah, that's how that happened.
All right. Well, obviously Eric used Tim on the first album, but were you ever in talks before that, or you didn't even enter?
No.
Okay.
No, we had only met like briefly, a couple times that Morbid was on tour, and I happened to be hanging around or whatever,
Gotcha.
So yeah, I don't know how. I don't even know how I got his number, or how that even happened, or why I even called him. To be honest, I don't. I think I was just so fed up with, because Jay was at the point. That was another reason I was getting kind of tired of Divine, and because like I just wanted to play faster and more ridiculous stuff, and Jay was like, man, I just want to lay back and play groovy stuff. I'm like, no, I get it, that's fine, but I want to haul ass. I can do it, and there are not too many guys doing it this way, and that's what I want to do.
Sure.
So when I met Eric, he had that same kind of like, it was either like blast beats or double bass, and that's it. No anything else. So I was like, deal.
Well, why did Tim even
leave?
leave?
He had already put Conquering the Throne had already come out.
Right.
Actually, now I know. Nick Barker told me.
Oh.
I remember Nick called me at home. He would say, "Bro, have you heard the Hate Eternal record, Eric's, of the thing?" I'll say, "No, I remember the demo." I said, "But I haven't heard the record yet." He was like, "Bro, you got to check it out." So I checked it out. He's like, "I heard he's looking for a drummer. I think that guy Tim that recorded it's not gonna go on tour or something." I was like, okay. That's how it started.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder why Tim didn't last, and that was kind of his first record that people started recognizing that name. Because before that, he was
Tim's young. At that point, he was young.
Yeah, he was pretty young.
Like 18 or something when he was 19 when he recorded that. So, and it just, I think he had a pretty decent, like, strong family ties in Rochester and stuff. So, I think it was just one of those things. He just wasn't ready.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you came in, and that was kind of your life for a while. Yeah.
I did the first tour, with Cannibal. And,
I saw you guys on that tour. Yeah,
I can't remember. Diabolic and somebody.
God Dethroned. That's right. Diabolic, God Dethroned, Hate Eternal, and Cannibal. That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wild tour.
Yeah, that's what I remember about that. I mean, I did tour after tour after tour with Hate Eternal, and that was fun. Just playing with like-minded musicians, and we were just set to conquer. That's all we wanted. We wanted to play, and I remember the three of us sitting around, and I remember saying to Eric and Jared, like, bro, if my objective with this at the end of the day is if people can make it through 3 songs of this shit, God bless them. I mean, you know what I mean?
It's
like
intense,
we were just trying to make it so absurd,
so
and
intense,
but still have songs.
Sure.
And not just be like Napalm Death and like unlegible, but still have songs. Mm-hmm. And we somehow or another, especially live, it was hands down we captured it. We just became different people, when we were on stage together for some reason.
It was furious, yeah.
And then we were able to capture it with King of All Kings. That was crazy, that record was literally written and recorded in 2 weekends.
Oh wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, Derek and Jared were both on tour with Morbid Angel. And they were on tour with Pantera, if you remember.
I do remember that tour. That was the Revolution, or the whatever.
Well, it was a couple of tours, and like that record, like in between, there was like three weeks or 4 weeks maybe in between those tours.
Okay.
And I had driven over, and like the first couple times I had come over to record, like the studio, it was just riddled with issues. Bad cables, ADATs not syncing up, channels dying. It was just riddled with crap, one thing after another. So by the time we actually got around to getting the drums tracked, and writing the music, or whatnot, we were all highly frustrated as well,
Yeah.
And Eric wasn't thinking we were actually going to be able to get it recorded before they had to leave him, for the Pantera tour. So it was really rushed, but we were able to capture something for sure.
Yeah, there's some killer songs.
Something
on
beyond the music.
Yeah. I like that album, but I can't deny that I Monarch is probably my favorite Hate Eternal for a number of
mine
reasons.
too.
For a number of reasons.
Yeah, mine too.
You have to
Give
talk.
me your reasons.
Well, being a drummer, you did that wild shit with the snare on your foot and doing the blast. But when you, I don't even remember where I read that or saw that before the album came out. But I remember watching the documentary of you guys kind of filming a little bit of the making as well. So I was watching those at the time. But when you said that, I'm like, this is revolutionary. Like, he's got his hands, he can do anything he wants with them, and he's doing all the blasting with his feet. I'm like, this is insane. So, like, you were really pushing the boundaries, not only as a drummer, not only as a death metal musician, but as a drummer, period, because that had never been done, I don't think, on a record, like, ever, unless you're talking about some kind of clave on your left foot. But to have a snare and actually
or
blast
somebody outside of metal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But not in metal. And so I was like, man, Derek's taking it to another level. Like, this is out of control.
Here's the thing about that. I was doing that stuff on tour for King of All Kings. The problem was that record was written and recorded so fast that all of the ideas that I had that I played live, like In Spirit, for example, had a lot of that stuff, multi-pedal and snare over here with a rock beat on top of it. It was all kind of, and if you go back and watch videos of me playing stuff off of King of All Kings, the drum parts are completely evolved into what they basically evolved into on I Monarch.
Ah, interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just didn't have time to be able to internalize the stuff and get the muscle memory good enough to record it,
Sure.
in such a short time period. But if you go back and watch live stuff, especially songs like In Spirit, what's some of the other ones on there? Anyway, I've always been bad with song titles, but yeah, go back and watch some of that stuff. So that's where my influences of other music, other drummers and things started to creep in, and I put my foot down on I Monarch because in between, right after King of All Kings, right before we recorded King of All Kings, I did Black Seeds.
Oh, right. Yeah, we kind of skipped over that. Yeah.
That came first. Yeah.
Okay.
I was playing with Eric and we were writing songs, and during the middle of that's when Pete called me and said, dude, I need you. Sorry, I've been sick last couple of days.
You're good. So he had some injury, correct? Was some kind of leg injury, or?
It was a shoulder thing. His shoulder was giving him issues, but I drove up there and started listening to that stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't know if I could even play this, much less Pete, and I love Pete's playing. He's one of my favorite drummers.
Okay.
I mean, I love that to me, Nile's first record, and I hate to be that guy.
I love that record.
You know what I mean? But to me, the only Nile record is the first one.
Yeah. I love it. I even had the demos. I had the demos at the time.
Yeah, I think Pete's drumming, once you took that away from Nile, like the whole identity of that band, again, it was just gone.
Yeah.
And I love Nile. I like Carl. These guys have been friends of mine forever, but it seems like they've released the same record
over and over
a dozen times now.
Yeah, that first one sticks with me as well.
Yeah, the first one is like so unique and so killer,
different.
and it's like it's not so focused on like how can I make it 2 BPM faster this time?
No, there's a vibe. There's a vibe on that record, and it's like you said, completely different, completely unique band.
Yeah.
Even on that Ramsey's Bringer of War EP, they really started honing in, because I had the Festivals of Atonement. I mean, that was when you get mail order catalogs, right? And the mail order catalogs didn't even have pictures, just lists. And so I would go, oh, that sounds cool, and I would just order stuff as a kid, or a teenager, and I get this stuff early on. But I remember Visceral Productions, which was a band, a guy from a band Hemdale up in Cleveland, or at least the suburbs of Cleveland. He was doing this mail order thing, and he was really helping push Nile before they even got on Relapse. So I was pretty much buying anything Craig was putting out on Visceral, and that's how I got the early Nile stuff, and was a fan, really early on, at least, once they started putting stuff out. So that first record,
I mean, I grew up with them.
Right.
Seen them a lot. They were just an hour away from us, hour and 10 minutes away from the Deboning Method. So.
Yeah.
And even going back before Nile, Mariah.
Okay.
And if you haven't heard that stuff,
I have not.
Look that up.
Okay.
Man, Carl's playing on that. It's hands down the best guitar playing he's ever captured, for sure.
Strong statement. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out for sure. So
Young,
Pete,
furious Carl.
Carl Sanders. So Pete gave you a call just from having known you forever. Figured you could handle it. Were you the first call?
Yeah. I mean, he had asked me before, and there's a whole convoluted story to it. I really don't want to get into, but I kind of thought the whole thing was a little bit, I don't know, underhanded.
Okay.
Towards Pete, but that's just me.
Yeah.
That's something else. But and I just, like I said, I was listening to the stuff going, damn, I don't even know if I can play this. What's going on here? Why would Carl write music like this?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I came in, I started listening to it, and basically Dallas sat on a bar stool, and we mic'd the kit. Dallas sat on a bar stool in front of me and said, all right, here's first riff. And I would be like, okay, just show me up until, whatever. And I would make mental notes. I was writing stuff down, like, okay, blast 4 times, tom roll, 16 measures. 16 measures, all right. like just whatever, and then I would go and I would just fly through it, and then he'd be like, all right, here's the next part, and that was done. I was telling Craig earlier, we did all of that without a click.
Crazy.
We basically had, after I realized what was going on, that they're going to piece all this together, after about maybe the 5th or 6th segment, I looked at Carl and Dallas. I was like, how are you guys going to tempo this? Like, I don't know what I'm playing. You guys know these songs, and Dallas is just free, like, here's the riff, and we play at that tempo, So I asked Bob, I was like, man, is there any way you could at least give me like an 8 count,
like
to what we're doing at the tempo that we're supposed to be at, so I know that it's consistent from punch to punch.
Right.
Because like I said, none of the rest of it was just me and Dallas like playing the riff. And then they had to go back and track over me.
Okay.
So that's, we rounded that out in about 17 hours, I think. I literally drove to South Carolina after Pete. And that was funny too. I was like, well, when do you need me to be there? He's like, can you be here tomorrow? It's like, we've already eaten up 2 weeks worth of studio time. I can't play this shit.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, all right. And he blamed it on his shoulder. But so, yeah, anyway, I put my drums in my car. I literally drove up there, set up after a 9-hour drive, went to my buddy's house, went to sleep, got up, came there the next morning, and we started busting it out. And I think we recorded 8 hours the first day, and then maybe 6 hours the next, something like that. It ended up being like 17 hours total, I think.
That's crazy.
That we did Black Seeds.
And Pete's on like one of those songs, right? Or one or two, something like that?
He's on To Dream of Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Crazy. But you were never intended to be in Nile, right? Because then Tony toured with him forever. I mean, I feel like Tony was in that band forever.
Correct. Again, I thought that the connection that I had with Eric, was more than it actually was.
Okay.
And that goes beyond like the music stuff, you know what I mean? And I never pursued Nile. And another thing too, I was like, with a band name like Nile, you're kind of painting yourself in a corner, and I kind of foresaw like
what happened,
being trapped there,
right?
You know what I mean, for like my musical career, like I don't
trapped
know,
in Egypt. Yeah.
Trapped in Egypt, exactly.
Right.
Ironically, ended up playing with a guy from Egypt, and we'll get into that. I'm sure.
Nader. So so we're getting back to, kind of want to go back to Monarch, because I think it was kind of a monumental record, not only for Hate Eternal, but probably.
Look, that's where I put my foot down.
Yeah.
Because I got so tired, like everything. That's why I brought Black Seeds up, because everything that I had done up until that point that stuff was written and recorded like within just a couple of months. I mean, in cold blood. The Divine stuff was a little better. I moved down and we kind of structured and wrote those songs over a couple month period. But then we recorded them, you know. So it was, and then, you know, the Council, the Aurora, all of that stuff. I just learn it and record it.
Right.
King of All Kings, Black Seeds, literally just like right on the spot doing this stuff, right?
Yep.
And I was just so tired of it, man. By the time I went out on tour and we were playing those King of All Kings songs, and I was thinking to myself, man, these drum parts could have been so much better,
Yeah.
man. Like, there could have been so much cool stuff going on. And then, again, Eric started with, whoa, Eric, you know, we got to get this out, blah, blah. I was like, man, no, I'm not doing this. We are not going to rush this, and we are not going to let this happen. So we actually did a pre-production of I Monarch.
Okay.
So I have that we recorded here. And I still have that.
Wow.
Like, all of those songs, like, you know, just a different recording of all of them.
That's
no
awesome.
vocals. I think Eric actually went back and did put vocals over them, so I knew where the vocal lines were.
Right.
That was another thing, because all of these records, I never knew where the vocals were going to be, so I never knew what to play, where,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And then I get out live, and I'm like, oh, I can play this cool splash line with the vocals now.
Right.
And I'm not stepping on his toes or overplay, you know what I mean? Like.
Yep.
So I put my foot down. I was like, no, this is not happening this time. Which is why I think that record came out the way it did, you know.
Well, on every level, I
It
think
was pretty monumental in the writing department for us, for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say not only that, so maybe it was a lot of you just putting on the brakes and saying, "Hey guys, like let's like really dive into this together as a group, as a unit,
Right.
and get everything we want to be this record to be." But it also ended up sounding the best. Like you could tell everything's like natural, but it's still like the production's still super in your face. I mean, the drums sound incredible. Just if you looked at King of All Kings compared to I Monarch, just from a production value standpoint, to me it's night and day. King of All Kings came out a little weak to me, as far as like the songs might have been there and this and that, but like production wise, it fell flat.
I hated it.
It
And you know
flat.
what? Eric and I fought on this, man. I would go over and I would get my drums sounding the way I wanted them, and like the cymbals specifically were very important. And every time I would come back to hear what Eric had done, he had like the drums like so overbearing and the cymbal so buried, like you can't hear any of the cymbal work on King of All Kings.
Right.
And I was like, what are you? The drums are all gated too tight. You could hear the gates opening and closing. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this sounds like crap. Can you just please leave it the way I left it? You know? And I understand if you got to tweak something to make it work in the mix. I totally get that. But like, you're doing a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff that's making the thing sound muddy. It's like, I don't understand, you know. Anyway, but again, rushed. They were going out on tour. It had to get done. It's got to get done. Blah, blah, you know?
Yep.
It's like, this is going to live forever, man. Like, your stupid tour is going to be over in 3 weeks. You know, like. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I Monarch was all about that, and that I Monarch was actually done on a 2-inch tape machine.
Oh, cool.
Which we bought one of the ones from More Sound.
Yeah. And actually, that board is now in Cleveland, by the way. One of the guys that me and Craig, or Reaper, however you want to call him, one of the guys we know here, they bought that board from Mana.
Which one? The TAC?
No, it's not a TAC.
Scorpion?
Yeah, I want to say it's a Scorpion. I could probably tell you while we're talking here.
No, the Ghost. It was a Soundcraft Ghost. Sorry, I got that mixed up with my guy in South Carolina.
That sounds right.
It was a Soundcraft Ghost.
I know I can find a picture of it, though.
Yeah.
It sounds right.
Yeah, it's a Soundcraft Ghost. I remember when Eric, we bought that together and started, that's what King of All Kings was recorded on, and I Monarch.
Okay.
But I Monarch was a 2-inch tape machine. Here's an interesting story about that. Okay. When we were on tour, and because we were starting the studio together, Eric and I constantly were hearing bands say, man, digital sucks. We don't want to record on digital. We want to record on tape. That's the way you do it. You do it on tape, you know? Okay. So we looked at each other and said, maybe we should buy a tape machine. Oh, well, hey, Jim's got that one for sale at More Sound. Okay, let's go buy it. So we bought it. We brought it back, serviced it, hooked it up. We booked like maybe half a dozen bands that summer to come in and record. Not one band could record on it. You know why they couldn't record on it? Because you can't punch in on a tape machine.
Right.
Without hearing it. unless there's a break in the song. Record head and the record head and the erase head on that machine is 18 inches apart.
Wouldn't you have to cut on a snare? Didn't you have to used to cut on a snare to like catch it? Because I want to say Lars always, is like moving all his.
Well, they were actually cutting tape. They would just do a different take, and they would cut the tape and slice it in.
Put it on a snare. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But these people didn't have the budget for that. You know what I mean? Like we talking about a $5,000 budget to record, 10 songs.
Right,
and,
just play the shit. Yeah.
Yeah, so these guys came in and they were like, what do you mean you can't punch in? So we ended up buying this machine, and the only band I think that ever recorded on it was us. That's pretty crazy, right?
That is really crazy. Crazy. Funny. Yeah, I would say most people nowadays that have a tape machine, they're recording through some kind of DAW Pro Tools rig, throwing it back to tape to try to get some warmth or something, like what on stereo tracks. And filtering it through and back, but yeah, that makes sense. That's funny.
Yep.
And I think I found this
board
hilarious. Too. Oh, it's spelled. We're gonna find this thing because it's gonna.
Yeah, it was funny when we bought that thing. The guy shipped it from, I don't remember, California. We got it and it had candle wax all over it, dude.
Oh, really?
Like he had candles lit in his studio and shit, but there was spilled candle wax all over it. It took us, man. We took all the knobs off of it. It took us like 2 weeks to clean that thing up. We had to take all the washers off and clean them in WD-40 just to get the wax off of them.
Oh my goodness!
It was a nightmare.
I'm gonna send you this photo to your phone. This is the board in question. Let me send this to you. I found it. But I want to say this is the one I thought that you did Monarch on though. Let's find out. It's that Amex or AMEC.
Nope.
That's not it.
That was the one that was in the newer Mana studio that Eric moved into after we kind of split apart there.
Okay.
There was the time period for about 3 months that when he was in this new place now that I was still playing with him. But that was I think that was in the B room.
Okay.
Of that place. But that wasn't what we recorded I Monarch on.
Oh, interesting.
I Monarch was done on a Soundcraft Ghost.
Soundcraft Ghost. Yeah, that's a name.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I had to find out. Okay.
That's a good console, though.
Yeah, it's cool. I saw it. I went over there and check it out. All right. Yeah, so if we, I guess I Monarch was kind of the, what do you call that? The curtain call, your grand moment. And then kind of started falling apart there, huh?
Well, it's like, again, I don't do these things to, talk any kind of shit about anybody or whatever, and it's like, Eric's cool, and whatever. Just it's unfortunate that, shit went down the way it went down, but I understand that music, well, I wouldn't even say that. I understand that this lifestyle is very important to people, right? And sometimes maintaining that lifestyle is more important than friendships, or partnerships, or growing as a person, or whatever it happens to be.
Sure.
And we just grew apart.
I see it happen all too much.
Yeah, and it's like there's only, look, and it never was really about money per se. It ended up kind of being that, what people thought at least.
Sure.
It never really was about that. It was just a string of bad decisions after another, like as on a band level.
Right.
Just bad decision after bad decision, and I never felt like that he would listen, but it was like in one ear and out the other.
Right.
It was always a thing of like, I know best. I've been in Morbid Angel.
Sure.
Which at the end of the day is a very small band.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah.
It's just a damn death metal band.
Right.
And my father, and not toot my own horn, but I actually grew up and my father had a Billboard hit when I was a kid on the country charts.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up in recording studios watching my dad. I knew all about the industry on a real level.
Crazy.
On like a gold record level.
Wow.
And that's what I brought to the table.
Yeah.
You know, but nobody would ever listen to me. And
Sure.
as far as that's concerned. So that's why I just got sick of it. And then, you know, on top of that, I'm watching the industry crumble around us, you know.
Yeah, right at
and-
that time, really,
you know,
yeah.
It was just, and it was just one, you know, loss after another, just doing tours and things not being as successful as they could have been if we would have just made better decisions, and you know, just that kind of stuff, you know. And I got to the point where I just got tired of getting by. I wanted to get ahead in life instead of just getting by.
Right.
So that was the biggest differential, you know, that we had, and it was just, we just grew apart. That's all.
Well, I could totally empathize and relate. I was in a touring band, a signed touring band, you know, and I exited it in 2009 for pretty much exactly the same reasons you said. You know, sick of getting by the skin of my teeth and poor decisions and one man kind of running the show. And
Seems to be a drummer thing.
yeah, well, it was a lot. Well, it maybe seemed to. I'm going to throw the blame. It maybe seemed to be a, you know, band leader thing. You know, at least in metal.
Well, I'm talking like growing up and moving on per se. It seems to be a drummer thing. 'Cause I
maybe
see that a lot. you know.
maybe.
Yeah.
I was actually playing bass at the time though, so I don't know if that works. Maybe it's just the drummer brain.
Yeah, that definitely is.
Well, so I'm gonna kind of veer, because this happened during your Hate Eternal time. It looks like, at least on the timeline, you were still doing some production work, because it looked like you had worked on that Pessimist record. You did some engineering or something, like, I don't know if they hired you.
Not even. I mean, that was a thing that, you know, Eric had booked them, and then like, a tour came up. Can you come over and record these guys?
Oh.
So I was like, yeah, I guess I have to. I mean, if
Okay.
you book a band, and, like, you're not going to be in town, and
Okay.
we're partners. I guess I'm there. You know.
Yeah. That's funny how
So,
some
yeah,
of these
I mean,
things
but-
happen. It's funny.
Yeah, I just pressed play and record. That's all I did for that. You know.
Okay.
Put some mics on some drums, and
Yeah.
you know.
All right. Well.
But the
there's
Council of
nothing
the Fallen I did, you know, those first couple ones, and then all of
Okay.
the Serpents Rise stuff. But,
Sure.
yeah. I think about that kind of production aspect a lot differently than a lot of guys doing it. You know, Craig and I talked about this earlier, but you know, all I'm trying to do is capture me. I'm not trying to alter it. I'm not trying to change it. I'm
Right.
not trying to make it better. I just want to capture me.
Capture the
And
moment.
When I record bands, that's what I do. I capture them. If you suck, oh well.
Right. That's what you sound like. Yeah.
That's what you sound like, and I'm not going to change. It's not my job to change it. It's your job to change it. If you suck, get better.
Right. Sure.
It's not my job.
Yep.
So that's where I come from. And I tell bands all the time that want to come here and record, I'm not going to make you sound like somebody you don't sound like. So when you come here, if you don't like the way you sound,
Yeah.
don't bother.
Right.
Don't waste your time.
Right.
You know?
Be prepared. All right. So after Hate Eternal, Blotted Science kind of came up for a minute, even though they ended up going with Charlie, I think. But is this something
Yep.
you just didn't have time for? I guess what happened with the Blotted Science thing? Because it was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, it would have been cool. See, how can I?
Oh, no.
You know, how can I do this without sounding like like I'm throwing people under the bus? Okay. Well, Alex originally asked me, to, and he was like, "Look, you know, would you like to do this?" I was like, "Yeah." I mean, Bobby's one of my favorite people and drummers on earth, and
Yeah, he's
you know,
awesome.
I know Ron. I'm familiar with the Watchtower stuff and all
Sure.
this. And it's monster. The first thing I said is, "Why isn't Bobby doing it?" Mm-hmm. So that got me curious, and you know, and then he said, "Oh, he's busy with Sebastian Bach and blah 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 blah." And I was like, "All right, okay, cool." So I called Bobby. I was like, "Bobby, what's going on?
Why aren't you doing
with your brother?" And he goes, "Well, you know, it's my brother."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He was like, "You know, he just wants things a certain way, and if they're not that way, then you know, he kind of just makes it that way with drum machine stuff and whatever." And I was like, okay, I see."
There you go.
So I called Alex back and I said, "Look, man, before you get me involved with Ron, is he going to let me be me?" Mm-hmm. And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Is he going to let me be a drummer? Or does he want me to play his drum machine parts?"
Yeah.
"Oh, no, dude, you know, no, he totally wants you." And I was like, "Okay, give me his number." So I called Ron, we started talking. And I'm like, "Look, man, you know, I like the material a lot, it's cool. I like your drum machine parts, it's cool. Everything that you're doing fits, you know, whatever. And I'll do my best to learn this stuff, you know, what it is, but I'm not going to change my character as a drummer, you know, for this stuff unless you're paying me for it." You know? And he was like, no, dude, I want you to be you, and blah, blah, blah. That's all cool and whatever. So I spent 3-4 months of my life learning this stuff, and not just learning it part by part, because he was cool. It's like, dude, just record it part by part and send it to me and blah, blah, blah. That should have been a red flag right there.
Right.
But I was thinking to myself, man, I could get us at the NAMM show. We could play a booth at, at the DW booth or whatever, We could do some cool stuff. I want to be able to play this stuff. I want to learn it. I want to play it. I want to record it like I know what the hell I'm doing.
Right. Yep.
So I would send him a rough version of the song. And he would send me back an email that had a laundry list of stuff to change.
Okay.
And I mean, now granted, I'm playing his stuff 98%, right? Mm-hmm. But I would get back a laundry list that was 00:00:00:0001 to 00:00:00:003. Play hi-hat more closed. From 00:00:00:004 to 00:00:00:07. Play hi-hat more open.
That's wild.
And it was like a lot. And basically, he did that with me for months until I was playing his drum machine parts.
Wow.
Exactly.
Crazy.
And I basically said, all right, well, if this is what you want me to do, this is my rate. Mm-hmm. And he never called me again.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah. Well, Bobby told you, I guess.
I mean, and it was mutual. I told him, dude, all is cool. I just don't have time for this without being paid. And
right.
If you're going to let me be me, it's one thing. And if I have my voice and I play on here. And what's funny about that is some of the stuff that I was doing that I changed, he actually kept. He told me it wasn't cool. I don't think it does too much to the part, makes it too busy, whatever. It actually ended up going on the record. So go figure.
Well, you're in there in spirit somewhere then. Yeah. Well, I wonder how much Zeleny came up then.
What's that?
I wonder how much of Zeleny's parts were, if it was actually
Oh, I'm pretty sure that the only thing he actually played on that whole thing are cymbals.
Really?
Sure.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, not
I think that was the only thing probably kept.
Wow.
In that whole thing. Yeah, I mean, that's just Ron, man. That's just how he works.
That's just how he is, yeah.
And that's why his brother didn't want to do it, apparently.
Yeah. Makes sense. All right. Well, after that, looks like, there's some time in between, but Steve Austin gave you a call, huh?
Yeah, that was right around the same time period.
Okay.
And, Steve was I guess he had read a few interviews with me, but he needed a drummer so bad, and he wanted somebody good, because he's always had really good players.
He's always had really good drummers,
He told me everything I wanted to hear. That he wasn't oh, no, I'm not too concerned about touring. I just want to make this record the best it can be. And when I actually went and did the record, I thought we were just doing pre-production.
Uh-huh.
Right? And I was in the middle of that was the height of my, doing drum festivals. And I remember being in Singapore and Indonesia and Japan and all kind of different places during that time period, just constantly moving around. And my snakes were doing really, really well at the time too, so I was busy with that. And I told him, I was man, I don't really. If we do this and we take our time and we're able to do this on our own schedule, I'm totally in, because I love your band and I like everything you've written and I love the music that we're doing right now. But again, I went to record, do pre-production, and then I'm over in Europe doing something. And I get an email from him hey man, we got this tour. It starts in 2 weeks, or whatever. Can you do it? And I was whoa, wait a minute. What's happening to the recording? Oh, well, I thought it sounded good enough, and I'm just going to release it as it is. And I'm what? So again, right back to where I was, writing and recording something in no amount of time period. That's another example of a record that, man, if the time was taken to make right, that record would have been amazing.
It's already pretty cool as is, But
yeah,
now
it's
hearing
good,
this,
but it could have been badass, man. I mean, if I would have had my way with it, it would have been way different for sure.
I bet. So that was the end of that then. I mean, you were probably
yeah, because I did the tour, and then Steve was literally passed out drunk, throwing up on stage every night.
Oh, man.
And then, he agreed, to a certain thing, and then that didn't happen. And I was just you know what? I am done with this. I left the tour. I was
oh, really?
This, I'm out.
Wow.
Yeah.
What tour was that?
Not my problem. Not my band.
Who were you on the road with?
For that, oh, God, I don't remember. It was a bunch of independent bands.
Oh, okay.
I don't even remember. Nobody came, but we played to an average of 10 people a night, man.
Wow.
It was nuts. It was so rushed, and so I was like, Steve, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Like I really liked what we had, and I thought that if we were to just, but here again is another example of a musician that the lifestyle is more important
Yeah.
than what is being provided for the lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like the music didn't matter so much. He had to get out on tour because he didn't want to be home with the kids and didn't want to deal with the
Right.
nagging wife and pay the electric bill. And it was just the same flushing toilet
Yep.
that I've seen for the previous 8 years. And I was just like, man, what am I doing? And I just made the decision right then and there. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Never again will I tour or like this or do this.
Did you happen
Never.
to see that documentary they put out? That's the Steve Austin one.
No.
Can't remember what it's called, but it was pretty interesting. Obviously he's had some issues, which you kind of alluded to. But it looks hopefully he's doing better. He's obviously recognized
I do
he's
too.
got demons.
And I had spoke with him maybe 2 years ago, and everything was cool. And I wished him the best. And it's like, man,
That's good.
I love your stuff, and still to this day, I love your band. And, that's all good.
Good. Yeah, it was a really, really insightful documentary. It was pretty gnarly, but it was a very personal insight into who he is and what he struggles with and that kind of thing. So it was cool that he allowed the world to kind of see that, and that definitely explains some of what you're talking about. So, all right, well then
totally.
This opens up into your thing, Serpents Rise, man. And it's funny because the Serpents Rise stuff, I guess I started seeing the name Serpent Rise, or even on I don't know, when you'd be credited on something, Derek Roddy of Serpents Rise. I'm like, what is this Serpents Rise? Why? I should know about this. I've been following Derek Roddy for, almost 15, 20 years now. Like, why? Or, 15. So why am I not finding this? Why am I not hearing this? And like you said, it was kind of intended to be your own thing in DIY and whatnot. But as a fan, I was like, I got to hear this. Where can I get this? So then coming to find it and listening to it and really enjoying all the stuff you were putting together, and obviously this is kind of your baby now, and this is your passion. So, if you want to talk a little bit about that would be cool.
Yeah, those first songs were like leftover stuff from Hate Eternal. Really, I was writing a lot and just wanted to get songs, on some of the Hate Eternal stuff. But again, so I ended up just keeping that stuff and just demoing it all out myself, and started looking for some people to play with. And just, man, it was so hard to find people that we just could obligate to becoming killer, And I wasn't asking for much, just, come here a couple times a week for an hour or two, and let's shred through some stuff and be serious about it and not drunk, and I don't have to go pick you up because you don't have a car, or
Right.
I got to buy you dinner because you don't have money. It's always something, man.
I know,
always.
man. Yep.
So that's what just prompted me. I just started doing it myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. Like at that point in time, I was done with the metal world, man. I wanted nothing to do with it, to be completely honest. I didn't do Serpents Rise to get signed and to put it out in the metal world. I did Serpents Rise so I could have heavy music without somebody yelling at people on my instructional and educational things, to be able to educate people about blast beat drumming without offending them with vocals and pointy letters. So because literally I had presidents of drum corporations tell me that the reason they've never supported death metal guys is they don't want to be associated with the image of it.
Right. Makes sense.
And when I came along, with wearing collared shirts and could speak without using fuck as a comma, that appealed to these people, and they were like, oh, well, here's a guy here's a whole untapped market. So that's how that happened for me. So I was so focused on that at the time. And I said, well, I guess I just got to do all of this myself, or else I'm not going to have music to play to at these clinics that I'm getting asked to do all the time.
Right.
So, yeah, like I said, like 4 or 5 of those songs were stuff that I had written for Hate Eternal, either for King of All Kings or I, Monarch, that Eric didn't feel like, I guess the pennies that would have taken out of his royalty,
Right, whatever,
was more important than expression as a band. So
Sure.
I was like, whatever, I'll keep it for my stuff. So that's how it started.
Cool.
And just not being able to find people, and just led me to being like, well, I'll just record everything myself and get it done. And I never wanted that.
Yeah.
And then the only reason I did Serpents Rise 2 is because I had already done one DVD and had the book out that had play-alongs that had Serpents Rise songs. And then I was putting out another DVD, and I was like, well, I need new music.
Right.
So again, I start looking for people, and just like dominoes, just people just dropping all over the place. I'd have guys that would come here and they'd spend 3 months here, and we start sounding really good, and then like I never hear from them again.
So weird. Yeah.
And dude, I'm like the least demanding guy to play with. I just want you to come in here and be you.
Right.
I'm not going to tell anybody how to play anything. I'm not going to tell anybody how to live their life or how to do anything. The only thing I expect is just have a job, have some money, and have some belief in yourself. And it's amazing to me to watch, to play with people finally after all this time, that I stopped putting worry into how good they are, or how, because people can get better. And when you play together a lot, you get better quick.
Sure.
And like these guys I'm playing with now, I mean, they're the best. At this point, they've turned into the best players that I've ever been in a band with, just right before my eyes. And
That's
man,
awesome.
that is so cool to witness, man.
It's really cool.
Damn. Instead of trying to find the best guitar player in town, and dealing with their attitudes and shit, I found the coolest people.
Right.
And it worked out. It took me 8 years or so, but now I have the band of my dreams now.
That's awesome.
So,
well, good for you, man. So were they on 3? Did you do 3 by yourself, or were they on Interpersonal Violence, or they only going to be on the upcoming stuff?
Well, so 3, I was working with a really good friend of mine, and one of the guys from the Deboning Method.
Oh, okay.
And we were writing some stuff, and they were learning some of I had leftover stuff from the second one, so we were learning, and we were writing, and again, like, one of the guys just dropped out of life. Call him, we'll go right to voicemail.
Wow.
I mean, like, we're jamming, hanging with this dude for a couple years, like, or at least a year and a half playing. We had a bunch of stuff together, gone. Like, poof.
What the hell?
Just disappeared.
Crazy.
So that's when I was like, you know what? We had already recorded stuff, and I just took all of his songs, and I took all of Rob's songs off of it, and just released 3 as an EP that had all of my stuff on it.
Okay.
So, and then 4, most of that is my material again. And right in the middle of the recording process, Glenn decided, The Great Die, I don't know if you have that written in there, but I was in another band here called The Great Die. We were playing shows and doing some stuff, and there's a release out of that as well that I never told anybody about.
Okay.
But it's pretty cool, 5-song EP kind of thing, just kind of Florida death metal sounding and stuff.
Nice.
Pretty cool. So Glenn was playing with me in that band, and then I just asked him, when doing this Serpent stuff 4, I was like, man, I don't want to play guitars on this. Would you learn this stuff and play it? So he did, and I found Jose, because Jose contacted me to buy a snake.
Oh.
And then after I sold him the snake, we started hanging a little bit, and then he told me, yeah, I used to play guitar. I was in this band locally down here. I was like, oh, I remember you guys, you and your brother. And he was like, yeah, my brother Iber played bass, I played guitar. I was like, well, you still playing? And he was like, nah, I got a kid, I'm married, whatever. I was like, bro, we got to play.
Nice.
I don't even know why I said that to him, Just, I guess, because outside of music, we were already, like, really connected with the Reptile stuff, and he's just a cool dude, had a lot of shit in common.
Sure.
I was like, all right, well, and he's a badass, so he came in and picked it up right away.
Wow.
And I was like, well, damn, all right, I'm really close to having the band. This is cool. And then I looked for a bass player. I played, so they played on Interpersonal. I played bass.
Okay.
Because we couldn't find a bass player. We kept auditioning guys. It's just nobody was the right fit. Like, Serpents needs a very specific bass player, and they're hard to find.
Yeah.
So I finally found a guy last year, Phil, and ironically, I knew about him from South Carolina back in the Deboning Method days, because he was in a local band that played out of North Carolina. They did shows and stuff around.
Okay.
And I remember them from back in the day, so that was kind of ironic. It was like a sign, you know. I was like, all right, so I need to get this guy over here. And dude, from the moment he came over here and plugged in, I was like, yep,
nice,
you're the guy.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So there it was.
There you go. All right.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, there's a couple other. Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Sorry, just making a note. There was a couple other things that you did here that we didn't touch that were more project-based or session work that I wanted to bring up as they struck me. One was the Menace record, which I thought was actually one of the coolest records with your playing because sounded like you got to be you on it.
Yeah.
So you want to talk a little bit about that? And it was cool to hear you play at slower tempos and be as creative as you are because there's still a lot of, like you said, multi-pedal things and it just sounded like you had fun playing on that record.
I did. Mitch and I, we go back to Harmony Corruption tour.
Okay.
And they played Columbia. We went back to our warehouse after they played. Like Mitch was wanting to party and stuff, and I was never into like the partying thing, but I was like, I'll go hang, you know, see what they're doing. So we ended up jamming, Mitch and I.
Oh wow!
And it was a cool night because it was just all grind and crazy and you know fast stuff. And he was like, "Man, we got to jam sometime in the future." So we exchanged numbers. And fast forward about 6 months, I was living in Atlanta. I moved from Columbia and moved to Atlanta. Right. And I get a call from my guitar player in the Deboning Method. We weren't playing together anymore, but I had a call from him, and he was like, "Hey man, I was at Rockefeller's, which was this local club, the other day, and the owner there, Art Burke, told me that Mitch Harris was trying to get in touch with you from Napalm Death." I was like, "Really? Well, I wonder what for." Well, apparently Mick had quit the band.
Yeah.
And I was the first person that they thought of to replace Mick.
So crazy. That's so wild.
Yeah. And he tried for like 2 weeks to get in touch with me and track me down, and it wasn't until like a month later or so that I was able to get in touch with him. He was like, "Nah, dude, we got one of Jesse's friends, this guy Danny, came into the band or whatever."
Wow.
He goes, "But man, we got to play together." You know, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, yeah." So fast forward, you know, me touring and doing metal festivals and running into Mitch, and every time we'd see each other, it became an ongoing joke. "Dude, we got to play with each other. We got to do something." No, and it was like this ongoing joke for a while. So then fast forward to, I guess, when was that, 2013?
Yeah, 14. Yeah, came out 14, so probably before that, yeah.
Yeah, so he got in touch with me. He's like, "Look, man," he goes, "this is like out of left field, and this is like totally weird stuff, but like check out one of these songs and tell me if you'd be interested in playing drums." And he sent it to me, and I was like, "Oh, fuck yeah, I'm in."
Yeah.
You know, and originally he was going to have a bunch of different drummers on it. Originally it was going to be Braun, but he couldn't do it because of stuff with Mastodon.
Okay.
And then he was thinking, well, I'll just get this drummer, that drummer, that drummer. But I turned like 2 or 3 songs around like super quick, like within like a week.
Okay.
And recorded it all here. And then Russ Russell got it, who was producing it. He was like, "Dude, the drum tones are fucking great. I don't even have to touch this stuff. This is awesome."
Nice.
And that made me excited that he said that, because I was like, okay, cool. Now I have somebody who won't be messing with my drums and sampling crap. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So and then Mitch was like, "Well, hell, can you do another 3?" I was like, "Yeah." So I just ended up doing the whole record.
That's awesome.
And I think, honestly, that's probably my favorite drum recording I think I've ever done.
Sounds awesome.
So it's funny that you bring that up, and I skip over it a lot because just of the circumstances, again, of how things, you know, went down. It's just that bad decisions, again, like putting it out on a label, a metal label, then stickering it with Nile and Napalm Death and Hate Eternal. And
right. That's nothing like any of that, yeah.
Yeah, man, and it's the wrong audience, man.
Yeah.
Complete wrong audience for this stuff.
Totally.
And again, it was just one mistake after another, and then Mitch ended up dipping out of Napalm Death. He had some things, personal stuff happen, moved back to Vegas, and just the whole thing fell apart.
Right.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I just figured it was a side project.
That was one of my favorite projects.
Yeah. I figured it was a side project for him anyway. I didn't expect much more out of it other than maybe some records or whatever.
Dude,
but
we had a costume designer. We were going to do like this crazy, I mean, like crazier, that we had this idea of like doing something crazier than anything that's been done before as far as like costuming and playing live.
Oh, wow.
It was going to be insane. Yeah,
I didn't even know it went that
we needed
far,
a
you know?
lot of money. We needed a lot of money to be able to do something like this, and that was part of it. And then Mitch was just discouraged because he knew to do it right, we needed a backer with $1 million in his pocket to do it right.
Yeah.
And if we would have had that, it would have worked. If it wasn't on Seasons of Mist and it hadn't have been marketed to all of this other, to this really small demographic of people,
Sure.
I think it would have worked. But it needed a lot of money to come to fruition. To do that type of band the way that we wanted to do it would have taken millions of dollars, and it just fell apart.
Yeah. Well, it's cool you have that moment in time captured, and like you said, you got something to be proud of, and finally got on that record with Mitch. You guys got to play together finally, finally happened. And it's really cool.
Hey, we got to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But it is really cool. I'd say I could say I'm a fan of the whole album as a whole, but there are at least half the songs stick in my memory where I'm like, man, that was a badass song. And especially, just even the drums, you can just kind of like zone out, listen to your playing and go, wow, what is he doing here? And really just kind of start dissecting.
Oh yeah,
things.
there's stuff
There's so
on
much
there, man,
going
that's
on.
like 3 different kick drums.
Yep.
And snares,
Hi-hats.
all types of different things going on. It's cool, man. It's got some cool stuff.
Yeah, it just sounded like you had fun with it. just through
and he
listening
let me
to
be me.
Yeah, right.
He just let me be me, and he didn't say anything. He was like, bro, every time I'd send him something, he was like, man, that was better than the last. It was exactly what I needed,
That's awesome. Well, cool. And then the last one I got for you is the Fire for Effect.
Right.
Just curious how you got involved in that. So you mentioned Gus Rios earlier. I actually have a little label called Redefining Darkness, and Gus had reached out to me to put out his Create a Kill because he was having problems with this other label he was working with in Europe or whatever. So I helped him out to put this out. I'd met Gus on the road. I was touring in a band at the time. Met Gus in San Diego, which is kind of a random place for Gus. I guess Gus had gone back and forth from Florida and San Diego at times. So I met Gus there, and we shared a passion for obviously drums and then some other bands and stuff that we were both really into. And we didn't really keep in touch, but we always remembered that meeting and that conversation. And so, occasionally I'd reach out to him online or whatever, and he saw I was doing the label thing, and so that happened with the Create a Kill stuff. And then we helped, and actually Reaper, the guy you talked to earlier, he helped create this Brett Hoffman tribute that ended up on that Create a Kill record, that Gus put together with Brett vocals on it. So, yeah, and that was probably all around the same time as the Fire for Effect thing was happening, or ish. So,
yeah, maybe.
Curious to hear how you got involved on that thing.
I didn't really, I don't remember. I think maybe Robin Mason.
Oh, yeah, okay.
She had texted me about it and said hey, Gio has got this project, and apparently the guys that were doing it or whatever flaking out on him, and he wants to get it done. And I guess Mike Smith was involved, and maybe a couple other people. I don't remember who else. But he had just moved locally again.
Okay.
Back from New York, and he was living close by, so he brought me the material by, and I was like, oh, this is easy enough. Yeah, I'll do this, And again, recorded the stuff very quick, did it. But I ended up doing everything at that point, so I recorded that whole thing.
Okay.
Initially, he wanted to go and record it. I was going to do the drums, and he was going to go do guitars somewhere, and then my bass player, I was in a band named Ends for a while, and we had a really good frontman bass player. I asked him to play bass on it. So Gio did all the guitars, I did all the drums. Brett was doing the vocals from New York.
Okay.
And he passed right in the middle of us recording it.
Crazy.
So he only got the 4 songs done with vocals. We only got 5 songs completed as far as before we just gave up, because what was the purpose of trying to do it,
Yeah.
after that. And so we just put out those 5 songs, and I guess all the proceeds went to his memorial.
That's good. Yeah, that's nice.
But I don't know how many people actually know about that either,
Well, right. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about.
A small label and
right.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it to light because obviously, Brett has a bit of a legacy just being who he is and being in the band he was, and I was fortunate enough, my first tour ever, we supported Vader and Malevolent Creation. So not only was it a dream come true for me as I worshipped those bands when I was young, but Brett was back during that time. And so not only did I get to experience Crazy Phil and their partying ways, and Brett was very much a part of that at the time, but Brett had a little bit of a meter. He had a little bit of more of a gauge on him where he knew kind of like when to pump the brakes, or when Phil was going too far, he'd kind of let Phil do his thing and kind of sink back into the shadows, So I actually had some really nice conversations with Brett that I kind of cherish now, because obviously he's not here with us anymore, but being such a fan for so long and being able to get to know him a little bit, out with him for 60 days or whatever we were. I just hold it close. So it's just cool to see that you got to connect with him in one way or another, whether it just be on the music side or not.
We've been friends for years too.
Yeah, I figured you were.
Anytime we'd play New York, he was always at the shows. He was always super supportive. And what's crazy about that is there's an acoustic piece at the end of it. And Gio was in the room just, playing, and I was pulling some tones together, and he recorded that piece. But when he was recording that, it was the exact moment that Brett passed.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty crazy.
Crazy, man. If there's anything interesting you want to bring up or anything you're trying to push?
The band, it wasn't really a band, but it was a project named Tromedy.
I don't know that. Tromedy, huh?
You ever hear any of that stuff?
No.
Yeah.
Who was involved in that?
A lot of it released, but you can find a lot of it from my drum stuff if you look online. But it's more of like a Mr. Bungle.
Oh, interesting.
Secret Chiefs. It kind of goes all over the place, like one of those genre bending.
Yeah, cool.
Bands,
Who was involved in that? Who was playing with you?
Okay, so it was another guy from the Deboning Method. He was a guy that went to school and later in life just creates music in his bedroom for the library. And he's done a lot of jingles and commercials of stuff that you see probably on TV.
Oh, wow.
And he had all this music, and he was like, he sent it to me. He said, check this stuff out. And I listened to it. I was like, man, you need real drums with this. He's like, yeah, I just can't afford to have anybody to do it. And I was like, dude, I'll do it. Send me all the files. It's cool as shit, So yeah, you can find that online.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I guess on that note, I would love to try to find some of the great die if you can guide us in the right direction. And was there ever anything recorded from the Creature stuff?
There's a 3-song demo that we did back then that I can send you all of that stuff if you'd like to hear it. None of it's ever been really released, but
I wonder if it's one of those things that you pretty much find everything on YouTube at this point. I wonder if someone leaked it out there.
It probably is on YouTube.
Yeah.
I know that Jason, the guitar player, about 3 years ago, Carl recorded. Jason got together with another drummer, and they learned all of these songs, and they re-recorded them.
Okay.
Like maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, or something like that. So don't get it confused with that. This would have been from like 95 or something,
Okay.
96, somewhere in there that we did it. And it was only 3 songs. But again, I can send that to you if you want to hear it.
Cool. That would be awesome. If you would like to have your questions answered by Derek or anyone else in the future, you know where to go. Reaper tells you every damn time. ReaperMetalProductions.com. Become a fan club member. It's way cooler than any other fan club because we actually give you shit and you ain't just paying to watch something. So we got some Patreon questions from our Reaper Metal fan club, and here they come.
Here they are.
So this is from Jeffrey Friedler. Hope I pronounced that correct. Okay, he doesn't really have a question for you, but he wanted to let you know that he really misses being on your drum forum. I guess he was a avid follower there.
Yeah, man, I hate we lost all that information. The server that it was on crashed.
Yeah.
And it took DerekRoddy.com. It took all of that with it, and
crazy.
Yeah. Then it got hijacked, and then somebody ended up with my old domain, the DerekRoddy.com. It's some like Chinese company ended up with it or something.
Yeah, that happened to one of my friends. It's so ridiculous. Then to get it back's like impossible.
I have another website. It's DerekRoddyLive.com.
Okay.
And I have merchandise up there, all of the Serpents stuff, most everything that I've done, and I'm in the process of updating more stuff on it. Actually, I have that on my list of things to do this week.
Cool.
To get that finished. So dirtroddylive.com is my new site, and I'm thinking about putting a forum up there, but they don't get a lot of traffic, man. Like, forums are dead. I mean,
well, you might get your guys back on there though, being that you had already established it, so many years ago. They may be,
maybe
like this guy. They may be jumping at the chance to get back and have that connection again.
Well, I'll keep you posted.
All right. Well, stay tuned, Jeffrey. All right. We have Dinkins. Now, we kind of covered this, and I'll kind of let you don't have to say anything, or we can leave it to the interview, or if, you want to make a quick comment. He asked why you left Hate Eternal, but we kind of covered a lot of that here. So, up to you.
Yeah, I just left because I felt that I had run my course in that band. My time we did what we could do with the ingredients that we had, and I just felt like there were no more ingredients coming in to make the soup any better, and I just got tired of eating it.
I think that covers it. And plus, we covered it a little bit more in depth earlier. Dinkins has a part 2 to his question, which was, what was his experience working with Eric Rutan, and maybe I'll further that in saying let's focus on the positive, and what was the experience at the beginning, when first coming in fresh?
I mean, playing was all positive.
Yeah.
Playing was all, and I've even told people before, like, if Eric ever wanted to do something again, I would be totally game for it. I'm just not going to be in his band.
Right.
I'll never do Hate Eternal again, but if Eric wanted to do something in the future, if he ever wanted to put something together or had some songs that he thought that my drumming would work well in, I'd totally be down for doing it. I'm just not going to be in his band.
Sure.
That's a different thing than, like, some people just don't know how to be in bands with people.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like what that actually means.
Right.
So.
Okay. We have Jan Rademacher. I am a big Watchtower fan. He's asking about the blotted science thing, which again we covered that pretty much in depth. But I'm gonna read his whole question. There's a lot here. Did he feel like a drum computer of flesh and blood? Was this Rademacher from Germany? Raidmaker. I bet Ron Jarzombek has exact drum pattern in his mind. And there was not much space for putting in your own flavor, which he pretty much nailed with this question. Was that the reason you didn't do blotted science? Did you ever jam in a room, or is it just sending files? You literally answered every one of these, but
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it just got to the point where if you want me to reproduce your drum machine parts, then you need to pay me for that, and he just wasn't willing to do that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Jan has a little bit more, and this is more focused on Nile. I met the Nile guys on the first European tour and experienced the first lineup on and off stage as great musicians and great people. Chief was a great guy, and I never read anything why he left the band. I know Pete had problems with his back, as I wrote some letters back and forth with him when he was getting the Ramsey's Bringer of War CD, I guess. He was communicating with him. He was a really unique drummer, and I thought he was really important for the Nile sound. How did you, and you said all these things, how did you experience, how was your experience, knowing Chief and Pete, and kind of, the experience recording Black Seeds, which we talked about. So yeah, he just kind of wanted to know a little about your relationship with those two guys.
Those guys started way before that, as we talked about. I knew them from back in, before the demo even days. Before their first Nile release, and Pete and I became friends, and I feel the same way. I thought Pete was very unique and characteristic of a lot of their sound. At least initially.
For sure.
Chief, great guy. Chief is an example of somebody who just moved on in life.
Yeah.
Right? There was really no reason. There was just an admirable departure. Like, okay, I need to go do this now, and that's fine. It's just people just grow apart. So
sure.
It happens.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that.
It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just happens.
Yeah, it's a life thing. Well, that's all I really got for you, Derek. I think we went through it all.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, completely.